Welcome, my friends. Today, I want to speak about something that touches the core of every human being's heart: love, connection, and the beautiful journey of finding your soulmate. There are many questions that arise when we think about love and relationships. Some ask, how will I know when I've met the one? Others wonder, is there even a soulmate for me? Let me tell you this, the idea of a soulmate is not a myth, but a profound reality, a reality that transcends your mind's limited understanding of time and space. But before we speak of the soulmate, let us first understand this. How does God show you your soulmate? Before you can even think about meeting someone who resonates with your soul, you must first align with your inner self. This alignment isn't a destination. It's a journey that transcends time and circumstances. It's the deepest truth I want to share with you today. The power of inner alignment is the key that unlocks everything you desire in your life, including your soulmate. Imagine for a moment that you're standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling, and everything around you feels chaotic. Now imagine that amidst all this, there's a small boat waiting for you. You've been told that if you board it, it will carry you across the waters to a distant shore, a shore where you will find peace, love, and everything you've been searching for. But here's the question: how are you going to navigate through those waves? How are you going to sail without being swept away by the current? The answer is simple, yet profound. You must first find your center. The ocean will still be there. The waves will still crash. But the key to sailing through it all lies in your ability to steady the boat, to stay balanced, and to trust your course. In life, the ocean represents the world around you, full of distractions, uncertainties, and external noise. The boat represents your soul, your inner being. If your soul is out of balance, if it is not aligned with who you truly are, then no matter how hard you try, no matter how many waves you face, you'll always find yourself struggling to stay afloat. This inner alignment isn't just some abstract concept, it's a fundamental law of the universe. When you align yourself with your true nature, you begin to experience everything in life differently. Your energy shifts, your thoughts become clearer, your actions become more purposeful. And most importantly, you begin to attract into your life people, opportunities, and experiences that are in harmony with your vibration. Now let's bring this concept closer to home. Think of a time when you felt completely out of sync with yourself. Perhaps you were caught up in a toxic relationship, or maybe you were in a job that drained you. You felt confused, disconnected, and like life was moving in a direction you didn't want to go. In those moments, it's easy to believe that the problem lies outside of you. But here's the truth. The problem was never the circumstances. The problem was the misalignment within you. The moment you realign yourself with your true essence, everything begins to change. Let me give you a real-world example. Take the story of a man named Raj. He spent years chasing after external validation. He worked hard, climbed the corporate ladder, and sought approval from his family, friends, and colleagues. Yet, no matter how much success he achieved, he always felt empty. His relationships were shallow, his health deteriorating, and his heart yearned for something deeper. It wasn't until he took a step back, disconnected from the chaos of his life, and started reflecting inwardly, that things began to change. He realized that he had been living a life that wasn't true to who he was. He had been running on autopilot, conforming to societal expectations, and suppressing his own desires. Once he decided to align his life with his true self, his authentic passions, his core values, and his deepest needs, everything shifted. His health improved, his relationships blossomed, and most importantly, he met the love of his life, someone who mirrored his inner growth. Raj didn't find his soulmate because he searched desperately for one. He found them because he first discovered the person he was meant to be. Now think about your own life. When was the last time you felt truly aligned with your inner truth? When was the last time you felt at peace with yourself, with your choices, and with your path? Maybe you're going through a challenging phase right now. Perhaps you're dealing with uncertainty in your relationships or struggling with your career. It's easy to become consumed by the external chaos and believe that the solutions lie outside of you. But the solution has always been within you, waiting for you to access it. Alignment doesn't come from trying to fix your life from the outside. It comes from understanding that the world around you is merely a reflection of what's happening within you. If you want to experience love, you must first love yourself. If you want peace, you must first find peace within. If you want to attract a soulmate who understands you, values you, and compliments you, you must first become the kind of person who aligns with those very qualities. You can't expect to attract someone who loves you if you don't love yourself. You can't attract someone who values you if you don't value yourself. Let's take another example. A woman named Maya had spent years searching for a partner who would complete her. She believed that someone else would fill the void inside her. She dated countless people, but each relationship ended in disappointment. One day, Maya met a mentor who asked her a simple question: "Do you love yourself?" Maya was taken aback. Of course she loved herself, she thought, but when she reflected deeply, she realized that her self-love was conditional. She based it on her external achievements, her appearance, and the approval of others. She had never truly loved herself for who she was at the core. So she embarked on a journey of self-discovery, of deep inner alignment. She began to nurture herself, to accept her flaws, and to embrace her own worth. Within months, she met someone who not only loved her, but adored her for the woman she had become, aligned, confident, and whole. The truth is, God shows you your soulmate when you are ready, when you have become the person who can fully appreciate the love and companionship that comes with a soulmate relationship. And that readiness begins with aligning yourself with your true self. It begins with tuning in to your inner voice, clearing the mental clutter, and allowing your soul to lead the way. Only then will you truly recognize the soul who is meant to walk beside you. Not because they complete you, but because you are both complete in your own right, walking together on a journey of growth, love, and divine purpose. You see, my friends, life is not a series of random events. There's a greater plan, a divine intelligence that moves through every step we take, every choice we make, and every moment we experience. You may not always understand it, but if you look closely enough, you'll see that God's timing is not just perfect, it's flawless, precise, and divinely orchestrated. All we often live under the misconception that life should unfold according to our timeline, that we should get what we want when we want it. But reality doesn't work like that, does it? We think we're ready for something today, whether it's a relationship, a new job, or a personal breakthrough. But we soon realize that the universe doesn't work on our schedule. In fact, it's only when we let go of our need for control that we can see how beautifully everything aligns when it's supposed to. Consider this. Have you ever rushed to a destination only to arrive and realize you were exactly where you needed to be at that precise moment? Maybe you missed a train, but because of that delay, you met someone who would become a lifelong friend. Or perhaps that missed train saved you from a dangerous situation. In those moments, it becomes clear God's timing was perfect. It wasn't that the delay was a nuisance or a mistake. It was exactly what you needed to be, where you were meant to be. Let's look at an example from daily life. Take the story of Ananya, a young woman who spent years chasing after the perfect relationship. She had been dating men who didn't understand her, who didn't appreciate her for the person she truly was. She often wondered, why does it seem so hard for me to find the right person? Why does everyone else seem to have it all figured out, and I'm still searching? It was frustrating for her, and she was losing hope. But one day, she took a step back. She decided to stop searching, to stop looking for external validation, and to focus on her own growth. During this time of self-reflection, she invested in herself, became more aligned with her purpose, and started to live life on her own terms. Then at a time when she least expected it, she met someone who, in her words, just felt right. The connection was deep, authentic, and soul-stirring. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rushed. It was simply the perfect timing of two souls meeting at exactly the right moment. You see, God's timing is never about being in a rush. It's never about the anxiety we feel as we think we're falling behind, or that we've missed the boat. Often it's precisely in the moments of waiting, of uncertainty, where we are growing the most. And in that growth, we are preparing ourselves for something greater than what we could have imagined. But how often do we doubt this timing? How often do we wonder if we'll ever meet the right person, find the right job, or discover our true purpose in life? The key is to realize that the very waiting we think is holding us back is in fact a time of preparation. Think of it like the process of baking a cake. You don't rush the oven, do you? If you take the cake out too early, it's not ready. If you take it out too late, it might burn. The cake bakes at exactly the right temperature, for exactly the right amount of time. That's how life works too. God is preparing you, shaping you, refining you, so that when the time comes you'll be ready. Let me give you another example. Rajesh was someone who believed that he had to hustle for everything in life. He worked tirelessly at his job, constantly seeking approval and recognition. He believed that success would come if he just worked harder. But despite all his efforts, he felt unfulfilled. It wasn't until a series of unexpected events forced him to slow down. He lost his job, his relationship fell apart, that he realized something critical. In his hustle he had neglected his own well-being, his health, and his inner peace. When he stopped chasing and started reflecting, he found new opportunities, ones that aligned with his passions and gave him a greater sense of purpose. And with this new sense of clarity, he met a woman who shared his values, someone who appreciated him for who he truly was, not for what he could give or what he could achieve. This story teaches us something profound. Often we're so focused on achieving, on being productive, that we forget that life is not about rushing to the finish line. It's about the journey. God's timing is perfect because it's not designed to force us into something we're not ready for. Instead, it allows us the space to become who we need to be, to fully appreciate the blessings that are coming our way. There is a powerful lesson in trusting the timing of life. Think about the moments when you've doubted, when you've questioned why things aren't moving fast enough. The key to unlocking God's perfect timing is trust. Trust that what's meant for you will come at the right time, even if that time seems far off. Trust that the delays, the struggles, and the moments of waiting are not signs of failure, but indicators of growth. And then there's the beauty of divine timing in relationships. How many of us have been in situations where we've met someone at the wrong time? Or perhaps we've met someone we were deeply attracted to, but it just didn't work out. These moments can be heartbreaking, but if we look closely enough, we'll realize that the timing wasn't right. Not because we weren't good enough, but because something greater was in store. Often God is guiding us away from the wrong people and leading us towards the right ones. The right person will show up at the perfect time, not a moment too soon or a moment too late, but exactly when you are ready. This brings us back to the idea that God's timing is not based on our watch. It's not about us forcing things to happen on our own timeline. It's about trusting that everything is happening at the right moment. It's about surrendering the need for control and allowing life to unfold the way it's meant to. If you truly believe that God has a purpose for you, then you must trust that your journey, every step, Every misstep is a part of the larger plan. The right things will come into your life when you stop rushing and start trusting. Many people, when they think of soulmates, imagine a flawless connection, two perfect beings coming together in harmony, as if life would suddenly become a smooth ride once they find the one. This is a misconception, one that often leads to disappointment and frustration. The truth about soulmates is that they are not perfection, they are growth. Soulmates are the mirrors that reflect back to us not just our beauty, but also our flaws, our insecurities, and our unhealed wounds. And it's through the challenging, messy, and sometimes uncomfortable process of growth that we experience the true depth of connection. Let me tell you about Neha. She had always believed that when she found her soulmate, everything would fall into place. She imagined a relationship filled with endless love, passion, and agreement on everything. However, when she met Arjun, she was caught off guard. Arjun was not the picture-perfect partner she had envisioned. He had his own struggles, his own doubts, and a past that wasn't easy to reconcile with her idealized version of love. The relationship wasn't without its challenges. There were disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments when both felt like giving up. But instead of seeing these difficulties as signs that they were not meant to be, Neha began to realize something profound. Arjun was not her perfection, but he was her growth. You see, we often think that a soulmate is someone who makes everything easier, who erases all the pain and struggle from our lives. But that's not what soulmates are. Soulmates are the ones who push us to evolve into better versions of ourselves. They are the ones who test our patience, stretch our understanding of love, and force us to confront parts of ourselves we may not even know existed. Think about it for a moment. The most powerful moments in our lives, the moments when we truly change, are not the ones that come when everything is easy. They come when we are challenged, when we are forced to look inward, when our limits are tested. These are the moments that shape us, that push us out of our comfort zones. And it's no different in relationships. Let's look at an example from daily life. Think about a plant. A plant needs water, sunlight, and soil to grow. But it also needs to face resistance. Whether it's the wind, the rain, or even the shifting of the earth beneath it. It is only through this resistance that the plant can grow stronger, taller, and more resilient. If you were to remove all the obstacles, if you were to create the perfect safe environment for that plant, it would never grow. The plant needs the challenge to become its fullest self. Similarly, we need the challenges in relationships to become the fullest versions of ourselves. The person we think of as our soulmate is not here to make our life easy, but to help us grow. Let's go back to Neha and Arjun. Their relationship wasn't perfect. In fact, it was messy at times. There were moments of pain, moments of doubt, moments when Neha questioned if she had made the right choice. But it was through these very moments that she began to grow. She realized that her fears, insecurities, and past traumas were being triggered, and instead of running away from them, she started confronting them. She began to heal parts of herself that she hadn't even known needed healing. Arjun wasn't there to be her idealized version of a perfect partner. He was there to help her see parts of herself that she had buried under layers of comfort and complacency. And in doing so, he was also growing, learning, and evolving. Together they were not only learning about each other, but also learning about themselves. That, my friends, is the power of a soulmate relationship. It is not a place of perfection, but a place of growth. This idea is often misunderstood. People expect a soulmate to complete them, to fix them,
to fill the empty spaces in their hearts. But this is a dangerous belief. It places the burden of your happiness, your completeness on another person. No one person can complete you. You must first be complete within yourself. Your soulmate is not there to make you whole. They are there to challenge you, to help you discover your wholeness, your strength, your potential. Consider Raj and Priya. They had been best friends for years before they fell in love. Their bond was deep, and they shared everything with each other. But as their romantic relationship developed, they began to see the sides of each other that they had never noticed before. Priya, who had always been the more reserved one, found herself suddenly feeling vulnerable in ways she had never experienced. Raj, on the other hand, had a tendency to be overly focused on his career, and often neglected the emotional needs of the relationship. At first, these issues caused tension and frustration. Priya wondered if they were meant to be together, and Raj felt guilt over not being more emotionally present. But instead of walking away, they chose to face their differences. They talked openly, listened deeply, and worked through their individual growth. In the process, they discovered new strengths in each other, and their bond deepened. Raj became more emotionally aware, and Priya learned to communicate her needs more clearly. Neither of them was perfect, but together they became better versions of themselves. This is the essence of a soulmate connection. It's not about finding someone who is perfect. It's about finding someone with whom you can grow. Your soulmate will not only reflect your light but also your shadows. They will challenge you to become the person you were always meant to be, even when it's uncomfortable. They will push you to break free from the limitations you have placed on yourself, and will help you rise to a higher version of yourself. Think about the most transformative moments in your life. Were they moments of ease and comfort? Or were they moments of challenge? Moments that required you to dig deeper, to face parts of yourself that you had long avoided. It's the same in relationships. If you want a soulmate who is perfect, you will never find them. But if you want a soulmate who will help you grow, you will find someone who will walk with you through the fire and out the other side, transformed, renewed, and more connected than ever before. Soulmates are not perfection. They are growth. The real beauty of a soulmate connection lies not in the flawless moments, but in the messy, transformative, and sometimes painful process of becoming who you are meant to be.
We often think that when we meet our soulmate, we're meeting someone who completes us. We believe that the person we're meant to be with will fill all the gaps, heal all our wounds, and make our life whole. But what if I told you that God does not bring you a soulmate to complete you, but to reflect you? What if the one who enters your life isn't there to smooth out the edges, but to show you the raw, unhealed parts of yourself you have yet to confront? In truth, your soulmate is not your savior. They are your mirror. Think about it. The person who enters your life, the one you call your soulmate, will not be perfect. They won't be the flawless partner you dreamed of. Instead, they will hold up a mirror to you, a mirror that reflects everything about you, both the light and the shadow. They will show you parts of yourself you may not like, parts of yourself you may have long ignored, and it's in facing those parts that you experience real growth. Take, for example, the story of Rena. She had always envisioned that meeting her soulmate would be the answer to all her problems. She pictured someone who would understand her completely, make her feel safe, and protect her from the challenges of life. She thought that love would be this calm, serene experience where everything just clicked. But when she met Vikram, things were anything but calm. At first, it seemed like everything was perfect. Vikram was kind, thoughtful, and shared many of the same interests as Rena. But soon, Rena began to notice something unsettling. There were moments when Vikram's behavior triggered her deepest insecurities. He didn't respond to her the way she had expected, and his perspective on certain situations challenged her beliefs. For example, Vikram was more relaxed about things than Reena, and it drove her crazy. She couldn't understand how he didn't seem to care about certain issues as deeply as she did. She felt unheard and unappreciated, and she began to question whether they were truly meant to be. But instead of distancing herself from Vikram, Reena began to look inward. She started to notice that the things she was upset about had nothing to do with Vikram's behavior, but with her own unresolved fears and insecurities. She had grown up in a home where affection and reassurance were always conditional, and her need for constant validation and affirmation was something she had never fully examined. She had always relied on others to make her feel secure, and when Vikram didn't fit into her expectations, she was triggered. It was in this moment of realization that Reena understood something profound. Vikram wasn't the problem. He was simply reflecting the parts of herself that needed healing. God had brought her a mirror, not a savior. Vikram wasn't there to fulfill her emotional needs. He was there to help her confront the places within herself that needed attention. This realization is a game changer for many of us. We tend to project our own fears, wounds, and unmet needs onto the people closest to us. We look for a soulmate to fix us, to smooth over the rough edges, to provide what we feel is missing in our lives. But what if the missing piece isn't external? What if it's internal? What if God brings someone into our lives not to give us what we think we need, but to show us what we need to heal within ourselves? Consider the story of Aman and Priya. Aman had always been the quiet, reserved type, focused on his career and avoiding emotional vulnerability. Priya, on the other hand, was open, expressive, and wore her heart on her sleeve. When they first met, they felt an instant connection. But as time passed, Aman found himself struggling to communicate with Priya. She wanted more emotional depth, more connection, and more expression of love. But Aman kept pulling away, afraid of opening up, afraid of being hurt. At first, Priya was frustrated. She didn't understand why Aman couldn't give her the emotional intimacy she craved. But over time, she began to realize that the issue wasn't with Aman, it was with her expectations. She had been seeking something from him that she needed to cultivate within herself first. Priya spent time reflecting on her own patterns. She realized that she had been looking for external validation her entire life, expecting others to fill the emotional voids inside her. But through her relationship with Aman, she began to see that she needed to give herself the love, validation, and understanding that she sought from others. Aman wasn't there to complete her. He was there to help her confront her own emotional reliance and help her realize that true emotional intimacy starts from within. In both of these stories, the common thread is this: our soulmates are not here to give us what we lack. They are here to show us what we need to heal. Your soulmate is the person who reflects your deepest fears, your hidden wounds, your unhealed past. And it is through these reflections that you have the opportunity to grow, to become whole, to heal. When we see our soulmate as a mirror, we understand that the challenges in our relationships are not a sign that something is wrong. They are an invitation to look deeper, to confront ourselves, and to change. Every disagreement, every moment of frustration is a chance to reflect on why we feel the way we do. It's an opportunity to ask ourselves, what part of me is being triggered? What belief or fear am I carrying that needs healing? God's plan is never about giving us someone who is perfect. It's about bringing us someone who will push us to be better, who will help us break free from the limitations we've placed on ourselves. The right person will challenge you. They will expose your weaknesses, but they will also support you in your growth. They will be your mirror, showing you the parts of yourself that need love, care, and attention. When we stop looking for perfection in our soulmates and begin to see them for what they truly are, a reflection of ourselves, we can approach relationships with a deeper sense of peace and purpose. We no longer seek completion through others, but seek growth. And in doing so, we unlock the true power of love. The signs are subtle. Too often we look for grand gestures, clear signals, or dramatic moments of revelation to guide us on the right path. We want clarity. We want certainty. But in truth, Life's greatest messages, the ones that lead us to our soulmate, our true purpose, or even our next step, often come in the form of whispers, small nudges and fleeting moments that can easily be overlooked. The universe doesn't always shout its truths at us. Instead, it gently nudges us, offering subtle signs that guide us along the way. And it's in those subtle signs that we often find the most profound lessons. Let's consider the example of Ravi. Ravi had spent years chasing after what he thought was his dream job. He had worked tirelessly, pushing himself to the limit, believing that this was the path he was meant to take. But deep down, there was a voice in his heart, a small, quiet voice, that told him something wasn't right. It wasn't a loud, dramatic realization. It was more like a sense of unease that lingered in the background. He ignored it at first, dismissing it as doubt or fear. But as time went on, that unease grew stronger. He noticed that his passion for the work was fading. The excitement he once had for his career now felt hollow. His body was telling him something too. He was constantly fatigued, his health was declining, and his relationships were suffering because he was so focused on his job. One day, Ravi was walking through the park, feeling completely overwhelmed. As he sat on a bench, a woman approached him. She smiled and began talking to him about a new project she was working on, something creative, something that sparked joy in her heart. As they spoke, Ravi felt a shift. It wasn't anything extraordinary. She wasn't telling him anything earth-shattering. But her words, her energy, were different. She spoke with a passion that Ravi hadn't felt in years. It was subtle, but it resonated deeply within him. In that moment, he realized that he had been chasing the wrong dream. It wasn't the job that he had been pursuing all these years that would bring him fulfillment. It was something else, something more aligned with his heart, something more connected to his true self. That brief conversation, that chance encounter, was the subtle sign Ravi had been waiting for. It wasn't dramatic, but it changed the entire course of his life. This is how life works, my friends. The universe speaks to us in whispers, in moments that may seem insignificant on the surface. But when we open our eyes and our hearts, we can see the connections, the patterns, and the messages that are being offered to us. The signs are always there, but we have to be aware enough to notice them. Take Priya, for example. Priya had been in a relationship for years that she thought was perfect. On the outside, everything looked ideal. They shared common interests. They had fun together. And they were both successful in their careers. But over time, Priya began to notice that something felt off. It wasn't a sudden realization. It wasn't a big fight or a dramatic shift. It was the small things. She noticed that she no longer felt excited when they made plans. She found herself withdrawing from conversations, and she started to feel like her needs weren't being met. But instead of confronting these feelings, she brushed them aside, telling herself that everything was fine. One day, she was having lunch with a friend who had recently gone through a difficult breakup. Her friend shared how she had finally left a relationship that was holding her back, and how, after months of uncertainty, she had found the courage to pursue what truly made her happy. As Priya listened to her friend's story, something clicked inside her. It wasn't a loud revelation. It wasn't a dramatic moment of insight. But she realized that she had been ignoring her own needs for far too long. She had been waiting for a big sign, for something external to shift, but all along, the subtle signs were there within her. Her dissatisfaction, her emotional withdrawal, her quiet yearning for something more. That conversation, that small moment of reflection, was the sign she needed to take action. It wasn't the dramatic ending to a relationship, but it was the beginning of her transformation. The key to understanding these subtle signs is to stop looking for obvious answers. Life does not always present us with bold, clear directions. Sometimes, the most important decisions we make come from moments of quiet reflection, from noticing the small changes in our feelings, our energy, or our thoughts. It's in the little things, a comment someone makes, a fleeting feeling of discomfort, a chance encounter, that we find the guidance we need. Consider how nature operates. Look at the way a flower blooms. It doesn't bloom in a single instant. It opens petal by petal, slowly, gradually. If you were to blink, you might miss it. But over time, you begin to see its full beauty, and you realize that each moment led to this blossoming. Life is no different. The signs that lead us to our soulmates, to our true path, to the right decisions, are not always grand, but they are always present. It's our job to notice them, to pay attention to the subtle shifts within us and around us. This brings us back to the importance of mindfulness. When we are constantly rushing, constantly looking for the next big thing, we miss the small nudges that are guiding us. We miss the whispers that are there to lead us. But when we slow down, when we become present in the moment, those signs begin to appear more clearly. We start to recognize the connections, the patterns, the clues that were always there, but went unnoticed. So what are the subtle signs you might be missing in your own life? Perhaps it's the quiet feeling of dissatisfaction you've been brushing aside. Maybe it's the little voice inside you, urging you to take a different direction, even if you're too scared to listen. It might be a conversation, a fleeting moment, or even a feeling in your gut. Whatever it is, trust that it's there for a reason. Life speaks to us in the language of subtlety, and if we take the time to listen, we'll hear it. The signs are always there. They are just waiting for us to open our eyes and see them. There's a saying that goes, timing is everything. It's one of those phrases we hear often, but do we truly understand its depth? We all have that moment in life when we wonder, why didn't this happen sooner? Or why didn't I meet this person earlier? We look at the people who enter our lives, and sometimes question the timing, especially when it feels like the right person has arrived after we face struggles or heartbreaks. But what if I told you that the timing is always perfect? What if I told you that the people who come into your life, whether it's your soulmate or someone who helps you grow, arrive at exactly the right moment, at exactly the right time? Let me tell you the story of Arvind and Meera. Arvind had spent his entire youth focusing on building his career. He worked relentlessly, often sacrificing his personal life and relationships in the process. Every time he thought about settling down, he convinced himself that it wasn't the right time. Oh, I'm not ready yet, he'd tell himself. I need to accomplish more first. He would meet women along the way, some interesting, some kind, but he never felt that deep connection. They weren't the one. So he continued to focus on his work, convinced that he would eventually find the right partner when the time was right. Meanwhile, Meera had been through her own fair share of relationships. She had loved deeply, been hurt, and had learned to protect her heart over time. After her last breakup, she made a decision. She wasn't going to rush into anything. She wanted to be whole first. She focused on her career, took up new hobbies, and worked on becoming the best version of herself. She had decided that if love was meant to come, it would come in its own time. But even as she made that decision, she couldn't help but wonder, when will the right person show up for me? Then one evening, Arvind and Meera crossed paths at a mutual friend's party. At first it was just a casual conversation. Neither one of them was looking for love. They were both simply enjoying the moment, connecting over shared interest. And Arvind found Meera intriguing. She was different from anyone he had met before. Her sense of humor, her kindness, and her ability to see the world with fresh eyes captivated him. Meera, on the other hand,
Oh, something too, but she wasn't sure what it was. Let me tell you, it wasn't a lightning bolt, a grand declaration, or an instant feeling of certainty. Let me tell you, it was subtle. It was the kind of connection that builds slowly, one conversation at a time. The more they spent time together, the more they realized that they were in fact on the same page. Their values aligned, their passions aligned. Their timing, however, couldn't have been more perfect. Arvind, having spent years focusing on his work, was finally ready to open his heart. Amira, having gone through her own journey of self-discovery, was finally ready to share her life with someone. They were both whole, not looking for someone to complete them, but instead to walk alongside them. They were ready for each other, and when they met, the connection was undeniable. The lesson in Arvind and Mira's story is this: they met at the right moment because they were both ready for it. If they had met at any other time, let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. Let me tell you, for love when he was caught up in his career. Mira wasn't open to trusting someone again when she was still healing. But when they crossed paths at the perfect time, they were both in a space where they could truly connect. At their readiness, their growth, and their healing all led to the right moment. This happens more often than we realize. Let me tell you, Percy's faked it. We may be going through challenges. Let me tell you, from past wounds, or simply focused on other aspects of life. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk, when we've taken the time to work on ourselves, while aligned with the right energy. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk, one more that good at for self. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 Take Anita, for example. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 She persisted in Nadella too. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 She was focused on herself. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 Who would have expected to connect with? He was quiet, introspective, and far from her usual type. But there was something about him, as they spent the weekend together, sharing stories and experiences. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 Lenissa could walk with her through her journey. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. What Anita didn't realize at the time. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. 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 Let me tell you, if Anita had met Samir 6 months earlier, she might have been too focused on her career. Let me tell you, Percy's Ferk. If Samir had met Anita before his own period of growth, He may not have been able to connect with her on the deep level. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 If somebody said Medi Kubun Trasset in a gap, this is the beauty of timing. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 I'll never tell you Porcy's. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 I'll never tell you It's not just about chance. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. Or Debbie was to my teethers. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 I'll never tell you. Maybe you were waiting for the perfect job, the perfect partner. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 Or rose they arrived when you were truly ready for them. The key was that you were aligned with your purpose. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 The right person will arrive when you are both ready, and when you are both ready, and when you are no longer searching for completion outside yourself. I'll never tell you Porcy's fur. 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 I'll never tell you. When you meet someone at the right moment, it will feel effortless. Although Italy, of course, is far. 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 Although Italy, of
Love as a spiritual practice. We talk about love often, romantic love, familial love, love between friends. But how often do we consider love as a practice, a discipline, or even a spiritual journey? What if I told you that love is not just something we feel, but something we actively cultivate? Something that, when approached with intention and mindfulness, becomes a transformative force in our lives. Let me share a story with you about Maya. Maya was always someone who loved deeply. She was the friend who would show up no matter what, the person who would give without hesitation, the one who believed that love was the answer to everything. But after years of giving herself to others, she found herself drained, burned out, and feeling unappreciated. She couldn't understand why her love wasn't being reciprocated in the same way. She gave, she nurtured, she cared, but somehow she still felt empty. Her relationships, whether romantic or platonic, seemed to leave her feeling unfulfilled. It wasn't that the people she loved didn't care. It was that Maya had never considered love as a spiritual practice. She had always thought that love was about giving without limits, but she hadn't yet realized that love also requires balance, self-awareness, and inner work. One day, as she was walking through a quiet park, something shifted within her. She was sitting on a bench, letting the sun warm her face, when a small voice inside her said, "You have to love yourself the way you love others." It wasn't an earth-shattering revelation, but it was enough to stop her in her tracks. Maya realized that in all the love she had given to others, she had neglected herself. She had been so focused on loving the people around her that she had forgotten that true love begins with self-love. It was then that she began to approach love as a spiritual practice. She didn't just want to give love to others, she wanted to embody it in everything she did. She wanted to be intentional about how she loved, not just in moments of ease, but especially in moments of challenge. Love, she realized, wasn't just an emotion, it was a conscious choice, a practice that required mindfulness and discipline. It meant loving with intention, but also with boundaries. It meant understanding that love wasn't just about how much you gave, but about how much you respected yourself and others in the process. Maya started to approach every relationship with a new perspective. She stopped expecting others to fulfill her needs, and instead focused on what she could offer. But more importantly, she became mindful of how she was showing up. When her friends needed her, she showed up with an open heart, but she also made sure that she was filling her own cup first. She practiced love by being present, really present, in every interaction. Whether she was listening to a friend's struggles or having a quiet dinner with her partner, she made sure that she wasn't distracted or running on empty. She gave love with presence, with intention, and with gratitude. And in doing so, she began to notice a shift in how she felt. She felt more fulfilled, more at peace, and more aligned with her own values. This is what love as a spiritual practice looks like. It's about approaching every interaction, every moment, with a sense of awareness. It's about not just loving when it's easy, but loving when it's hard. When your partner is angry, or your friend is distant, or your family is in conflict. Love as a spiritual practice asks you to meet those moments with patience, empathy, and understanding. It's about recognizing that love is not a transaction, it's a force that exists beyond circumstances, beyond expectations. Take the example of Rohan and Simi. They had been in a long-term relationship for years, but over time, they had grown distant. They loved each other, but something felt missing. They found themselves arguing over small things, or worse, remaining silent when the distance between them felt too vast to bridge. One evening, Rohan came home from work, feeling defeated. He had been thinking a lot about his relationship with Simi. He loved her deeply, but he realized that he had been taking her for granted. He had become complacent, assuming that love would just happen without effort. He had stopped practicing love intentionally, and the distance between them was the result of neglecting the spiritual discipline of love. That night, instead of retreating into his usual pattern of frustration or silence, Rohan made a decision. He decided to approach love as a practice, not as an expectation. He apologized to Simi, not because he was supposed to, but because he genuinely wanted to reconnect with her, to show her that he valued her. He listened to her without judgment, without trying to fix things immediately. He simply held space for her, allowing her to express herself. And in that moment, Simi too realized that love was not something they could take for granted. It was something that required effort, attention, and care. Over time, they both began to nurture their relationship as a spiritual practice. They worked on their communication, on being present for each other, and on supporting each other's growth. They learned that love is not about perfection, but about growth, understanding, and respect. This idea of love as a spiritual practice goes beyond romantic relationships. It applies to how we love ourselves and how we love others, whether in our friendships, our families, or even in our communities. Think about the love you give to yourself. Do you treat yourself with kindness and compassion? Do you take the time to nurture your own well-being, to create space for your own healing, or to simply rest when you need it? The practice of love starts with yourself. It starts with being gentle with your own heart, learning to forgive yourself, and accepting that you too are deserving of the same love and care that you give to others. In the workplace, love can also be a spiritual practice. It might not look like grand gestures or overt affection, but it can be seen in the way you treat your colleagues, the way you approach your work, and the way you give your best self to your tasks. It's about showing up with integrity, with a sense of purpose, and with respect for the people around you. When you approach your work with love, love for the process, love for the people you're serving, love for your own growth, you create an energy that is contagious. Love as a spiritual practice requires us to move beyond surface-level interactions and to engage with the world around us with intention. It challenges us to be mindful, to be present, and to open our hearts, even when it's difficult. It asks us to let go of expectations and to show up fully in each moment, knowing that the love we give is the love that will transform us. This is not easy work. It's a lifelong journey, one that requires patience, awareness, and a deep commitment to growth. But when we make love a practice, we tap into its infinite power, the power to heal, to connect, and to transform. We live in a world that constantly pushes us toward perfection. We're taught from an early age to aim for the ideal, to pursue the best version of everything: our careers, our relationships, our appearances, our lives. We idolize the notion of perfection, thinking that if we can just reach it, we will find happiness, success, or peace. But what if I told you that perfection is not the goal? What if I told you that the search for perfection is the very thing that keeps us from truly living, from truly experiencing the fullness of life? Let me tell you the story of Priya. Priya was a young woman who had always been driven by the idea of perfection. She grew up with the belief that success was about having everything figured out, about showing up as the perfect version of yourself in every situation. She was the star student, the overachiever, the person who always seemed to have it all together. But beneath the surface, Priya was exhausted. She was constantly striving, constantly reaching for an ideal that never seemed to materialize. No matter how much she achieved, it never felt like enough. The perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect body, these were the things that dominated her mind. But each time she reached one milestone, another would appear, and the cycle would repeat itself. One day, after a particularly challenging week at work, Priya found herself sitting alone in a cafe. She was scrolling through her social media feed, looking at the curated lives of others, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness. It seemed like everyone else had it all figured out. Everyone else was living their best life, while she was stuck in the constant pursuit of perfection. She thought about the pressure she put on herself to be flawless in everything she did, and in that moment, something shifted inside her. She realized that her constant chase for perfection had become a barrier, not just to her happiness, but to her ability to truly live. In that quiet moment, Priya had an epiphany. Perfection, she realized, wasn't real. It was a construct, a social ideal, created to make us feel like we're falling short. The perfect life, the perfect person, the perfect moment, they didn't exist. What existed was life as it truly is. Messy, unpredictable, full of ups and downs. And in that realization, Priya let go of the need to be perfect. She began to embrace the beauty of imperfection, not just in herself, but in others, and in life itself. It was liberating. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. But this isn't just Priya's story. It's a story we can all relate to. We've all fallen victim to the illusion of perfection at some point in our lives. We've all looked at others and thought, why can't I be like that? Or when will I finally reach that level of success? We see people who seem to have it all together, the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect home, and we compare ourselves to them. We judge ourselves by a standard that's not even real, and in doing so, we miss out on the beauty of what is right in front of us. Let me give you another example. Think about Akash, a talented young musician. He had been playing the guitar since he was a child, and he was good, really good. But no matter how much he played, he never felt like he was good enough. He listened to the greats, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, and thought to himself, I'll never be as good as them. He was always comparing his progress to theirs, constantly striving for perfection. He would rehearse for hours, trying to hit every note just right, making sure every chord transition was flawless. But despite his skill, he couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't living up to some unattainable ideal. One evening, Akash was playing in a small local cafe, doing what he loved. But as he played, he noticed something that surprised him. The audience wasn't paying attention to how perfect his playing was. They were simply enjoying the music. There was something raw and beautiful about the way Akash's fingers moved across the strings. The small imperfections, the slight mistakes, they made the music feel real. It wasn't about perfection. It was about the emotion behind the music, the authenticity of the moment. That was when Akash realized that he had been chasing an illusion. He wasn't meant to play like anyone else. He was meant to play like himself, imperfectly, authentically. His unique style was what made his music special, and it was time to let go of the need for perfection. Now let's take this idea and apply it to our relationships. How often do we enter relationships with the expectation that they should be perfect? We set unrealistically high standards for ourselves and for others, thinking that true love should be without conflict, without flaws. We look at other couples, admiring their seemingly perfect lives, their perfect partnerships. We think to ourselves, if only I could have that. But here's the truth. There is no such thing as a perfect relationship. Every relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner, a friend, or a family member, will face challenges. There will be misunderstandings, arguments, and moments of tension. But those moments don't diminish the love or connection. In fact, they are a part of what makes the relationship real and meaningful. Take the example of Ria and Vikram. They had been together for 5 years, and like any couple, they had their share of disagreements.
At one point, Rhea began to feel that their relationship wasn't perfect. There were things that bothered her, things that Vikram did, that annoyed her, and moments when they simply didn't see eye to eye. She began to doubt whether they were meant to be together, thinking that if they were truly meant for each other, everything would be easy. But one day, after a particularly difficult conversation, Rhea realized something important. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was grounded in love, mutual respect, and the willingness to grow together. Perfection wasn't the goal. Growth was. And in that moment, Rhea let go of the idea that relationships should be flawless. She embraced the messiness of love, the way it ebbs and flows, and how it deepens through overcoming challenges together. The truth is, perfection is a trap. It keeps us stuck in a cycle of comparison, judgment, and dissatisfaction. It convinces us that we're not enough, that we need to be more, do more, have more. But the reality is that we are enough, just as we are. Our imperfections, our mistakes, our flaws, these are what make us human, what make us relatable, and what connect us to others. Perfection doesn't exist in life. Life is about showing up, embracing the imperfections, learning from them, and continuing to move forward. It's about being authentic, being real, and being willing to embrace the beauty in what is rather than chasing an illusion that will always remain just out of reach. So the next time you find yourself striving for perfection, whether in your career, your relationships, or yourself, ask yourself this: what if I let go of the need to be perfect? What if I embraced the imperfection and found peace in it? Because in the end, it's not the pursuit of perfection that will bring you happiness. It's the acceptance of your imperfections that will set you free. God's will for us is not to simply find a soulmate and live in harmony forever. It's not about two people coming together and staying in one place, static, without change. God's will is for us to evolve together. It's about growing side by side, experiencing the highs and lows of life, and allowing those experiences to shape and mold us into the people we are meant to become. Love is not a destination, it's a journey, one that is deeply transformative and ever-changing. Take the story of Neil and Maya. When they first met, they were drawn to each other almost instantly. Their connection was undeniable, and they shared a deep sense of understanding that made their relationship feel effortless. They thought they had found their perfect match, and for a while, they did. But soon the reality of life began to set in. Neil, with his ambitious career goals, found himself dedicating more time to work, while Maya, with her dreams of starting her own business, found herself stretched thin between building her career and taking care of their home. Slowly, their paths began to diverge. They began to argue more, misunderstand each other more, and feel disconnected. At first, they thought something was wrong. They wondered if they had made a mistake by getting together in the first place. But in the midst of their struggles, they began to realize something. Their challenges weren't signs that their relationship wasn't meant to be. They were opportunities for growth. What God wanted for them wasn't just to stay in a comfortable, static relationship. He wanted them to grow, to stretch beyond what they thought was possible, and to help each other evolve into better versions of themselves. This wasn't just about love. It was about learning, growing, and becoming who they were truly meant to be. They began to approach their difficulties, not as obstacles, but as stepping stones. Neil realized that his ambition didn't have to come at the expense of his relationship with Maya. He learned how to balance work and love, how to show up for Maya in ways that he hadn't before. Maya, in turn, realized that her own dreams were just as important as her relationship. She had to prioritize her own growth and not just give everything she had to Neil. The struggles they faced, rather than tearing them apart, brought them closer. They weren't just evolving separately, they were evolving together. They were learning how to love each other in deeper, more meaningful ways. They learned the value of compromise, of patience, and of truly understanding the person they had chosen to spend their lives with. And as they grew, their love grew with them. What they didn't realize at the start was that their love was not meant to stay the same. It was meant to evolve, just as they were. Now let me bring this to a broader perspective. Think about the concept of personal growth. As individuals, we are all on a journey, a path toward becoming the best version of ourselves. But what if I told you that this journey is not meant to be walked alone? What if your soulmate, the person who walks beside you, is not just there to love you, but to help you evolve? This is not about changing the other person. It's about growing together, encouraging one another to become more, to push each other toward greatness. God's will for us is not to remain stagnant. He wants us to become better people, to grow in love, patience, kindness, wisdom, and strength. And often, the person we are closest to is the one who will help us do that. Take a moment to think about the people in your life. Think about the relationships that have challenged you the most. The people who have pushed your buttons, made you uncomfortable, or made you question yourself. Now think about how much you've learned from those relationships. Maybe they helped you understand your own boundaries. Maybe they taught you patience, or how to communicate better. Maybe they helped you discover strengths you didn't know you had. These are the people who are part of your evolution. They are not obstacles to your growth. They are facilitators of it. And the same goes for the person you are in a relationship with. If you are open to it, they are the one who will challenge you to grow in ways you never imagined. Take the example of Ria and Arutal. They were in a relationship for years, but for a long time, they were comfortable. They weren't really growing. They were simply coasting. But as time passed, they started to feel a sense of unease. They were both unfulfilled in different ways, and they didn't know how to bring it up to each other. Then one day, they had an honest conversation. Arun admitted that he felt stagnant, like he wasn't growing as a person. He realized that he had become complacent in the relationship. Ria, too, admitted that she had put her dreams on hold for too long, focusing so much on the relationship that she forgot to nurture her own aspirations. At first the conversation was uncomfortable. It was hard for them to admit that they had allowed their relationship to become stagnant. But as they talked, they realized something important. They weren't meant to just exist together. They were meant to grow together. They decided to start pushing each other to be better. Arun encouraged Ria to go back to school and pursue her dreams, even though it meant spending more time apart. Ria, in turn, encouraged Arun to take the leap and start his own business, something he had always wanted to do, but was too afraid to try. Their relationship, which once felt comfortable but stuck, began to flourish again, because they were no longer holding each other back. They were lifting each other up, encouraging one another to evolve into the people they were meant to be. They were growing together as individuals and as partners. This is what God's will is for us. He doesn't want us to settle for a relationship that is merely comfortable. He wants us to have a relationship that pushes us to be more, that challenges us to become the best versions of ourselves. A relationship where both partners are evolving, growing, and becoming better people, not just for each other, but for themselves. When two people come together and commit to evolving together, they create a powerful bond. They learn, they grow, they change, and they help each other become the people they are truly meant to be. God's will is not for us to remain the same. He doesn't want us to find someone who simply fills a need in our lives. He wants us to find someone who will walk with us on the journey of becoming the person we are meant to become. The soulmate you are looking for is not the one who will complete you. They are the one who will help you grow, evolve, and become the best version of yourself. This is the beauty of love, the magic of God's will. Love is not about finding someone who is perfect. It's about finding someone who is willing to grow with you, to help you become who you are meant to be, and to challenge you to evolve into the person you are truly capable of becoming. Trusting the process and trusting God is something that sounds so simple, yet it's one of the most difficult things we can do in life. It's easy to say, trust God when everything is going well, when the doors are opening, and life is falling into place. But what about when things don't go as planned? What about when the road is long, when the waiting seems endless, or when the dream feels out of reach? That's when trust becomes a real test. Take the story of Arvin. Arvin was a young man with big dreams. He always knew that he was destined for something greater. He had a vision of building his own company, a place where he could help others, and create something meaningful. He poured his heart into his work, gave his best every day, and believed that with hard work, success would follow. But after years of struggling, after countless late nights and sacrifices, Arvin found himself at a crossroads. The company wasn't growing as he had hoped. Investors weren't biting, and the path forward seemed unclear. In those moments, Arvin doubted everything. He questioned his decisions, his vision, and even his faith in God. How could this happen? He had worked so hard, followed all the right steps, and yet he wasn't seeing the results he expected. It felt like his dream was slipping away. One night Arvin sat down and opened his Bible. He flipped through the pages aimlessly, feeling the weight of his doubts, and then he came across a verse that spoke directly to him. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. In that moment, a wave of peace washed over him. He realized that even though his current circumstances didn't look like he had hoped, he wasn't alone. God had a plan for him, and that plan wasn't necessarily about instant success or immediate results. It was about trusting the journey, trusting that the process he was going through was part of the bigger picture. That moment of clarity didn't solve all of Arvin's problems overnight, but it changed his perspective. He began to understand that trusting God wasn't about having everything figured out right now. It was about faith in the process. Even when the process was hard, frustrating, or painful, he began to see his struggles not as setbacks, but as lessons. Every rejection, every failure, every challenge was part of the process that would eventually lead to the fulfillment of his dreams. But he had to trust it. He had to believe that God was working behind the scenes, even when things didn't make sense. This is where so many of us falter. We want things to happen on our own timeline. We want instant results. We want to see the fruits of our labor right away. But God's timing is not our timing. The process He has for us is not always going to be easy. There will be moments of doubt, moments of confusion, moments when we feel like giving up. But it is in those moments that trust becomes the most powerful thing we can hold on to. Think about it. When we plant a seed in the ground, we don't see the results immediately. We water it, we nurture it, but it takes time. The seed needs to break through the soil, to grow roots before it can sprout. And even then, it doesn't happen all at once. It takes time for the plant to fully bloom. Trusting the process means accepting that growth doesn't happen overnight. It means believing that the work you are putting in today, the small steps, the sacrifices, the learning, the waiting, it all counts. It's all part of the process that is leading you to something greater than you could imagine. Let's take an example from the life of Rena, a woman who had been trying to conceive for years. She and her husband had always dreamed of having children, but after trying for a long time with no success, Rena started to feel like maybe it just wasn't meant to be. She felt the weight of disappointment every month when she wasn't pregnant. She questioned God, asking, "Why, God? Why is this taking so long? Why haven't you answered my prayers?" But even in the midst of her frustration, Rena continued to trust. She kept going to her doctor, kept following the treatment plan, kept praying, and kept believing. She knew that even if it wasn't happening in her timing, it didn't mean that God had forgotten her, or that he wasn't working. Then after years of waiting, Rena received the news that she was pregnant. It was a long, hard road, but God had been with her through it all, teaching her patience, strengthening her faith, and refining her character in the process. Her faith had been tested, but it had been strengthened. The waiting had been part of the process, and it had prepared her heart to receive the blessing that God had in store for her. God's will is not always about instant gratification. It's about the process. It's about becoming the person you need to be in order to handle the blessings that are coming your way. Just like Arvind and Rena, you are on a journey. The steps you are taking today might not seem significant in the moment, but they are preparing you for the future. Each lesson, each hardship, each setback is not wasted. It's part of the process. You are growing, evolving, and learning how to trust in God's plan, even when you can't see it clearly. There will be times when life doesn't make sense. When you've worked so hard, prayed so much, and still things don't seem to be going your way. But it is in those moments that your trust in God is truly tested. Can you trust Him even when you can't see the outcome? Can you trust that He is working behind the scenes, even when everything seems silent? Can you trust that the process, no matter how long it takes, is leading you to something greater than you ever imagined? Trusting the process means that you believe in God's timing, not your own. It means you trust that He has a purpose in every step of your journey, even the painful ones. It means you believe that every moment of waiting, every moment of struggle, every moment of uncertainty is building something greater in you. It's developing your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for the blessings that are coming. When you trust the process and trust God, you release control. You surrender your plans, your timeline, and your expectation. You embrace the journey, knowing that God is guiding you every step of the way. You believe that He has a plan for you, a good plan, a plan that will prosper you, and you trust that no matter how long it takes, His timing is perfect. So take a deep breath, and trust. Trust the process, trust that God is working, and trust that everything you are going through is leading you to something greater than you could ever imagine. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep trusting. The best is yet to come.